Sky Squad, we are back in the building, and I honestly just felt like we needed to do a real quick Ponderosa recap of last night's episode of The Nightcap with Carlos King. Because you had Dr. Heavenly and you had Martell Holt, okay, on the show. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, Dr. Heavenly infamously interviewed Martell Holt and she gave him the business, okay? Now, allegedly, he contacted her for that interview. So now that we're going to be getting them back on the nightcap with the Carlos King, okay, which premiered after the latest episode of Love and Marriage DC. We got to talk about everything that happened, okay, and everything that was said, because the drama popped off not even within the first 5 minutes of the two of them being on stage together, okay? So let's take things back to the beginning of the feud this year. A lot of you guys may recall the social media special that we did for Love and Marriage Huntsville before the season premiered. And here is a clip of something that Dr. Heavenly said.
Gave up his whole meal for some coleslaw.
So I'm going to play it just one more
Gave up
time.
his whole meal for some coleslaw.
So that set Martell off, okay, on a tirade wherein he labeled Dr. Heavenly a messy ASS blogger, okay? Called a woman a messy blogger, okay? Because, you know, Dr. Heavenly does her recaps and she talks about pop culture. She also does a lot of stuff about, you know, finances and stuff like that. So she's all over the map with her content. And she does what she sees fit, which is what I love. So then they discussed this photo here on Dr. Heavenly's page, wherein apparently Dr. Heavenly, I don't know if she was there to support Destiny, but you know, when Carlos brought it up, she was like, I don't even know why Martell was there. I mean, he wasn't on the flyer. Okay. And Martell is basically like, well, you can't seem to keep my name out your mouth. And Dr. Heavenly is like, listen, don't try to play me like that, because she was like, I knew Melody. I did not know you. Okay. You contacted me for an interview. Okay. So then he goes on to talk about how Dr. Heavenly disrespected his baby's mother, Ariane, by calling her out her name, which was Coleslaw, okay, on the show. Now, I simply refer to her as the mistress because, you know, or I just say her name or whatever, because I felt like that's what she was at one point in time. But Martell had a real big issue with that, like of, you know, Dr. Heavenly calling her out her name like that. And Dr. Heavenly was like, well, that was the only name that I knew her by for a long time, and I didn't come up with the name or whatever. So Martell was like, you know, just in any relationship and, you know, any type of situation, I just feel like you need to respect the person and who she is to me or whatever. So Dr. Heavenly was like, oh, so who is she to you then, basically? You know, is she somebody that you planning to marry? You know, because I'm a wife. So that's the perspective that I'm coming from. And what you had was something on the side. So that's what I considered her. But if you telling me that you about to make her a wife or something like that, I mean, what is she to you? What's the label or whatever? And so Martell is like, that's the mother of my child. Like, that's my baby's mama. Okay. So he wouldn't really go any further into that. But they was, let me tell you something. They were going at it. Okay. They was going at it. So much so that Dr. Heavenly actually made another post on her Instagram earlier. She said, and this was the post. She said this. She says, tune in tonight to the nightcap with Carlos King, and the right after I'm going live. So make sure you guys go check out her YouTube page. I'm gonna go check it out, and we might have more to discuss a little bit later. Okay. But I also got to do my review of Love and Marriage Huntsville. So that might have to come, either later on today or tomorrow. All right. But she says, subscribe. I'm trying to see something. Who would you choose to be your husband, Dr. Damon or Martell Holt? Then she says, Negro, you could never. I started to put their credentials, but I didn't want to drag Martell too bad. Hashtag Love and Marriage Huntsville, hashtag Dr. Heavenly, hashtag Married to Med, hashtag Bravo Girl, hashtag Team Daddy. Okay. Not the poll, baby. Not the, she doing a poll on the jamboree. Okay. So it went down between the two of them. If you did not see it, you guys can catch it on Hulu or on YouTube TV. That's how I typically watch most of my shows. OWN is on Hulu at this point in time if you don't have cable. So you can check it out there. Or like I said, you can check it out on YouTube. With YouTube TV, you just want to make sure that you save you have to add the show to your library in order for you to keep the episodes, right? Now, moving on into some other things that were addressed was Dr. Heavenly was asked by Carlos King what her thoughts were about Miss Wanda stepping in to basically call out everybody that has something to say about her daughter. And Dr. Heavenly, similar to what Monique said last week, was basically like, I feel like, Latisha needs to be stepping up and handling these ladies or whatever. And she basically said she felt like Latisha was just a weak, whiny, a weak, whiny chick or whatever. Dr. Heavenly gonna keep it all the way 100. Okay, she ain't got no cut cards, and it is just gonna be what it is. She says she feels like Latisha is weak. I can see how people would say that. I do think Latisha just wants to believe in her marriage, as any person would, right? But she unfortunately has a husband who sometimes likes to troll the people on the internet, and that ultimately makes Latisha look a certain type of way to people. And so I can understand that being the perception, because Dr. Heavenly also goes on to say later on that she feels like, as the woman in the marriage, you should submit to your husband, but you got to pick the right husband to submit to. Okay. Um, I'll leave that for y'all to discuss in the comment section down below. But basically, she called her, uh, the weak, the weak whiny chick. Okay. I was like, ooh, no. I mean, but again, Dr. Heavenly, she gonna say exactly what she feels. Now, we also had a question for Martell asking if Martell ever gave Marceau any advice about how to deal with, I think, the cheating rumors or allegations that are constantly going on about him. And Martell was basically like, and I had to write this down because it was a very interesting response. And I was like, I don't think that's going to go over too well. Martell says he feels, and I'm paraphrasing, that he doesn't know if Marceau and Latisha's marriage will last if these rumors continue to persist. And I was like, that don't really look too good. I always want to know, where are the rumors coming from? I always feel like I hear about the rumors, but I don't ever notice, like where it, like what was the direct source of the rumor, okay? And I also think that, again, his Marceau's wordplay is oftentimes a little tricky, a little slippery. And so it's hard to trust when someone is being slippery or tricky. However, what Marceau does explain in the episode, well, I ain't gonna even give that away. I'm gonna leave the video, I'm gonna leave what happened in this recap for the nightcap on that, and we will discuss what Marceau has to say about why he manages things the way that he does and how that affects their relationship for the actual recap to this episode of Love and Marriage Huntsville. And it was this freeze frame at the end for me that just sent me over the edge. Y'all know I don't like a to be continued. But what I do enjoy is a dramatic to be continued. If you give me something like this, a graphic like this, a still frame like this, I just felt like it leads me to like, I want more. And then they still give us the preview for next week's episode, which is something that I appreciate, because what I don't appreciate is the dramatic to be continued and then we don't get what we're going to get next week. So kudos to the production team and to Own and everybody for making that happen in the way that it happened. But let me ask you guys a question. Did you watch the recap, the nightcap with Carlos King? What did you think? Was it not an entire hot mess? And I loved every single second of it. What did you think of Martell and Dr. Heavenly going at it round two? What did you think about what Martell said about Latisha and Marceau's marriage? And what do you think about what Dr. Heavenly had to say about Latisha? Okay. I believe the next episode of the Nightcap will feature Tamar Braxton. So that should also be very, very interesting. I'm always intrigued anytime Tamar's on the screen because you just never know what she's going to say and what she's going to give. So, with that being said, guys, that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the recap for Love and Marriage Huntsville. It is coming up very, very soon. And of course, we will be doing it live. So, be sure to check back with us, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell button, and I will catch you in the next video.